Hi everyone, this is Mariam Qadir, and today I'll be guiding you through a presentation on a topic that affects societies worldwide, the corruption. So, without wasting any minute, let's begin with the very essence of our discussion, the introduction to corruption. Corruption isn't just a word. Corruption, the abuse of entrusted power for personal gain, is a global phenomenon that siphons trillions of dollars annually. This pervasive issue erodes public trust, undermines democracy, and fuels social unrest, demanding urgent actions on all fronts. Next, we'll discuss the definition of corruption. According to the slide, corruption is described as the abuse of entrusted power for personal gain. Corruption can occur in both the public and private sectors, impacting governance and business practices. Moving on, let's explore the various types of corruption. First, we have bribery, offering or accepting something of value to influence a decision. Next, we have embezzlement, stealing or misusing funds entrusted to one's care. Next, we have fraud, is described as deceiving someone for personal gain. Next on board is tax evasion, illegally avoiding paying taxes. Then we have money laundering, hiding the source of illegally obtained money. Next is nepotism, appointing family members to position of power without regard to their qualification. Then we have extortion, obtaining money or property from someone through threats or intimidation. Next, we'll examine the cause of corruption. These root causes contribute to the proliferation of corrupt practices in societies. Factors such as weak institutions, low public participation, bureaucratic inefficiency, and various others create fertile ground for corruption to thrive.
Hi, I'm Eman Naveed and I'll be sharing the impact of corruption on developing countries. Corruption has economic, social, and political impacts. As you can see in the slide here, we have a graph here that illustrates that corruption has a higher impact on economic conditions as compared to social and political impact. Moving on to the next slide, we have the effect of corruption on economic development here, in which we have reduced investment, distorted markets, increased poverty, and undermined institutions. To have a better understanding of the effect of corruption on economic development, we will first discuss reduced investments. People are less motivated to invest in a corrupted economy as there is a lack of trust in the system's integrity and sustainability. Additionally, investors are uncertain and there are potential losses. Therefore, the overall economic conditions are worse. Next, we have distorted markets. Distorted markets in a corrupted economy can lead to unfair advantages for certain players. This affects trust and eventually harms the overall economic conditions. The third effect we have is increased poverty. Poverty is increasing due to unfair distribution of resources, limited access to opportunities, and reduced investments in social welfare programs. Also, corruption diverts funds away from useful services, like by useful services I mean basic essential services like education and healthcare. Next, we have undermined resources. In a corrupted economy, institutions are undermined as there is lack of trust in judiciary and government and other key institutions, which weakens the rule of law and accountability. Undermined institution can hinder the progress of an economy and create instability. It is also essential to address corruption properly, which we will discuss later on. Moving forward, after economic effects, we have social effects. To delve deeply into the social effects, we will first discuss the increase in inequality. As I said earlier, corruption drives resources away from essential services, right? So, which significantly affects the people who are relying on those services. Another reason for increase in inequality is that people who are able to provide bribes and have connections are the only ones who get access to well-paid jobs, especially in government. This motivates other people to pay bribes as well. Lack of trust further contributes to increase in inequality. Next, we have social unrest. Corruption creates social unrest because we all know that when people are not provided with their rights, they lose trust. Hence, they fight with the officials through protest. Lastly, we have political impacts from corruption. The legitimacy of the government is weakened due to corruption as the government loses the trust of both its citizens and international community. This affects foreign investments and diplomatic relations, etc. Additionally, democracy is undermined because corruption allows wealthy individuals to influence political decisions of everyone, which leads to lack of accountability among elected officials. Lastly, public trust is the most important thing, and when people lose trust in the government due to heavy corruption, it creates a chaos. That's all from my side.
Hi, my name is Dania Ali and I am going to explain the corruption in Brazil. As we know, Brazil is a developing country, but there is so much corruption. Beginning in March 2014, with the investigation of a small car wash in Brazil over money laundering, the proceeding uncovered a massive corruption scheme in the Brazilian federal government, particularly in the state owned enterprises. The probe was conducted through a joint task force. Evidence was collected and presented to the court system by a team of federal prosecutors. After that, the investigation took so much time, and at last, companies and individuals accused of involvement have agreed to pay 25 billions in fines and restitution of embezzled public funds. According to the investors, political appointees in state owned enterprises systematically extorted bribes from private sector suppliers. Part of these bribes were channeled to the political parties. Over 1100 sites were related to the scandal in order to illegally fund political campaigns as well as personal gains. The largest amount of bribes were deducted at oil giant Petrobras. Company directors were negotiated with contractors to receive illegal kickbacks ranging from 1% to 5% of disbursement. Due to its pervasiveness in Petrobras, the scandal is also known as Petrolaw. Petrobras management loses $17 billion due to mismanagement and graft. The investigation then led to Carvalho's arrest, which was about to uncover an unprecedented web of corruption. There are so many political, social, and economic effects of this operation, which can be seen in the slide. There were also so many outcomes from this operation. First, the political fallout. The investigation implicated numerous high profile politicians, including two former presidents also. It led to their impeachment and conviction, respectively, on charges related to corruption. Second, there were business implications. Several major Brazilian construction companies were found to be involved in bribery and kickback schemes. Executives were arrested, and these companies faced hefty fines and reputational damage. Another outcome was legal reform. Operation Car Wash spurred legal reforms in Brazil aimed at combating corruption, and there were also effect on international ramification. The investigation had ripple effect beyond Brazil, as it uncovered corruption ties with other countries in Latin America and beyond. It led to investigation and prosecution in countries like Peru and Colombia. The good outcome of this operation is public awareness. As Operation Car Wash increased public awareness of corruption in Brazil and fostered demands of accountability and transparency in government and businesses. But the public also lost its trust. 75% of Brazilians believed corruption was widespread. Then there is also another example of corruption is discussed in this PPT, which is the academic scandal in the US. In simpler terms, it means a big mess or controversy involving universities and colleges. In 2019, there were several academic scandals in the US, but one notable example was the college admissions bribery scandal. There were massive consequences and outcomes from this scandal. First of all, it badly affected the reputation of universities. Obviously, the scandal tarnished the reputation of prestigious universities implicated in the scheme. This institution faced scrutiny and criticism for this, for their admissions processes and oversights, as you can see in the slide. 63% of Americans believe the college admission process was rigid in favor of wealthy. Next, there were legal consequences also. Dozens of individuals, including wealthy parents, coaches, and college administrators, were indicated on charges related to bribery, fraud, and conspiracy. Some were sentenced to prison terms, fines, or community services. It also affected the environment socially. The scandal sparked conversation about privilege, inequality, and the fairness of college admissions, prompting calls for greater transparency and equity in the higher education system. The only good thing which has happened was regarding this situation were policy changes. Universities implemented reforms to strengthen admission procedures and prevent similar abuses in the future, including enhanced oversight of athletic recruitment and donations. Over 50 individuals, including famous faces and rich people, faced federal charges for conspiracy and fraud.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Abdul Ahad and I'm telling you how we can fight against the corruption. To fight against the corruptions, we have two measures which we can take. Number one is strengthening our institutions. Number second is social and cultural reform. To stronger our institution, one of the key factors that enable corruption is a lack of transparency and accountability in public institutions. Transparency means that information about public policies, budgets, contracts, and performance is accessible and verifiable by citizens and stakeholders. Accountability means that public officials and institutions are subject to oversight and sanctions for their actions and decisions. Transparency and accountability can help deter corruption by increasing the risk of exposure and punishment, as well as enhancing the public participations and feedback. One of the best measures to take the transparency is digitalization. This will reduce interactions, and everything will be easy access for everyone. Another factor to stronger our society and for anti-corruption measure is enhancing law enforcement that can reduce public sector corruption is the existence and enforcement of legal and ethical framework that define and regulate the conduct of public officials and institutions. Legal framework include law, regulations, code, standards that specify the rights and obligations of public officials as well as the mechanisms and procedures for reporting, investigating and prosecuting corruption cases. Ethical framework include values, principles, norms, codes that guide the behavior and decision making of public officials, as well as the mechanism and procedures for monitoring, evaluating, and rewarding ethical performance. For example, we should strictly follow rules and should take measures which will aware the officials. Another factor for an anti-corruption society is a streamlining bureaucracy. For streamlining bureaucracy, one of the best measures is to decentralization, which means moving decision-making power from the central officers to the local officer, or even the frontline worker could improve the responsive time and overall efficiency. Streamlining processes can be done by simplifying forms and procedures and eliminating unnecessary steps which such as introducing technology, automating certain tasks, and using digital platforms can help speed up the process and reduce the need for paper, etc. Another factor for a stronger society is social and cultural reform, which means promoting ethical values such as code of conduct for public officials and independent judiciary frameworks to prevent bribery, etc. Empowering citizens is also a good factor for anti-corruption such that can reduce the public sector corruption is the role and influence of the civil society and media. Civil society refers to the organizations and the group that represent the interests and value of citizens such as NGOs, unions, associations or movements. Media refers to the platforms and channels that information and opinions such as newspaper, radio, television, or social media. Civil society and media can help reduce corruption by raising awareness and education, mobilizing public opinion and action, advocating for the reforms and policies, exposing and denouncing the corruption cases, and holding public official and institute accountable. All and to stronger society, we should use the public awareness campaign. You can get creative by taking your anti-corruption drive on stages, music, drama, poetry, or dance can be used to show citizens how to combat negative society forces like corruption, as well as give idea about how to improve your own community. Comics are a powerful way of raising awareness of anti-corruption through a combination of images and text. Comic can also help spark debates and they can easy to produce. All you need is a pen and a paper. So the conclusion about the anti-corruption society or the fight against the corruption is the corruption is a form this of a dishonesty or a criminal offense which is undertaken by a person or an organization which is interested in a position of authority in order to acquire legal benefit or abuse power for one personal gain. But in my opinion, we can use these measures for anti-corruptions, but we cannot eliminate corruption totally. Hence, we can reduce it, but we cannot remove it. Thank you.